Hello, you lovely little people. My name is Sarah, and I'm going to be reading a chapter from Peter Pan and Wendy by JM Barrie. It's called The Little House is Built. Now, if you remember, at the end of the last chapter, Wendy had been shot by Tootles, but the arrow had gone into the button that Peter had given her. So she was not dead, she was only fainting. "Oh, do get better quickly, Wendy," said Peter. "I want to show you the mermaids." But of course she couldn't answer. What was that curious noise overhead? "Listen to Tink," said Curly. "She's crying because she wanted the Wendy to be killed." Peter did not know what this meant, but when they told him how Tink had screamed at them to shoot the Wendy, he was shocked, and he said, "Tink, I will not be your friend anymore. Go away. Forever." Tink begged and prayed, but Peter would not listen until he saw Wendy move her arm again, and then he said, "Well, go away for a whole week anyway." And Tink flew away, cross as two sticks. Peter and the boys were wondering what to do with the fainting Wendy. Curly said, "Let us carry her down into our house," and Slightly agreed that this was a proper way to behave to ladies. "Oh no," said Peter. "It would not be respectful to touch her." "Just what I was thinking," said Slightly. "But she will die if we leave her here," said Tootles. "Yes, she will," said Slightly. "But there's nothing else to be done." "Oh, but there is," cried Peter. "We will build a little house all around her." Wasn't that a clever plan? Peter made the boys fetch branches and moss and furniture from the house underground as fast as they could go. And while they were scurrying all over the place, almost tumbling over each other, they were so eager to please Peter, two sleepy persons crawled in amongst them. These were John and Michael, who kept on going to sleep and just waking up enough to take another step and then go back to sleep again. Peter had quite forgotten them, but when they said, "Hello, Peter," he began to remember. They said, "Is Wendy asleep?" Peter was busy measuring Wendy so as to leave some room beside her for a table and chairs, and he said, "Yes," without thinking. "Let's waken her up and make some supper," said Michael. But Peter commanded them to help build Wendy's house. He told Curly to see that they did, and John and Michael were so surprised at the idea of building a house for Wendy that Michael forgot to say, "I won't," and John forgot to be sleepy. They were at once made to work like anything. "First we must put the table and the chairs and the fender," said Peter. "Then we shall build the house all around them." "Oh yes, I remember," said Slightly. "That's the way a house is built." "Slightly, go and fetch a doctor," said Peter. "Aye, aye, sir," said Slightly. He went away and returned with John's top hat on. He made believe to be a doctor, and as Peter did not know the difference between real and make-believe, this did very well. Peter called him "Sir," and Slightly pretended to put a glass thing in Wendy's mouth. When he took it out again, he told Peter he had cured her. Next, he ordered that she was to be given beef tea out of a cup with a spout to it. Then he took back the hat, which was quite real, to John, for whom he had borrowed it without asking. The odd thing was that Wendy really was getting better. She began to move a little, though her eyes were still shut, and by her mouth opened. "Perhaps she's going to sing in her sleep," said Peter. "Wendy, would you like to sing what sort of house you would like?" Wendy then sang a little verse, still with her eyes shut. "I wish I had a pretty house, the littlest ever seen, with funny little red walls and a roof of mossy green." They got it made almost at once, because they had all the building stuff ready and handy. They sang as they worked, and the little house looked so jolly, with red branches and green moss and make-believe roses. Inside it, they'd put the nicest things from the house underground. When they thought it was all properly finished, Peter told them they had forgotten the door knocker and the chimney. So they put the sole of a shoe for a door knocker and John's top hat with the bottom taken out, and that made a splendid chimney which started smoking at once. Then they all waited around while Peter knocked at the door. They did so wonder what would happen next. The door was opened and out came Wendy, and she said, "Where am I?" "Wendy, lady," said Slightly, "this is the house that we have built for you." "Oh, do see you're pleased," said Nibs. "It is a lovely, darling house," exclaimed Wendy. The lost boys knelt down and held out their arms and cried, "Oh, Wendy, lady, be our mother." Wendy was delighted, but she answered that she was only a little girl. "Won't matter," said Peter. "A nice motherly person's all we want." "Very well," said Wendy. "I feel that is just what I am. I will do my best before I put you to bed. And I will finish the story of Cinderella." So they all squeezed somehow into the little house while Wendy told them stories, and then they were tucked up in bed in their own home under the trees. Wendy was most beautifully motherly. When she'd gone to sleep in the little house, Peter, with his sword drawn, stood and watched outside. Everything was bright and happy as could be. The fairies, going home late, found Peter asleep too. This amused them very much, but it didn't surprise them. They had got used to Peter by now. Tomorrow night, I'm going to read you all sorts of adventures. But I hope you've cleaned your teeth, and I hope that you have washed your hands. And then I want you to go to bed, snuggle in, and give yourself a big, big cuddle. Good night.